What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here with part 8 of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Tiktaq'to Immortal Empires expanded campaign. So as we saw last time, we have acquired the Mask of the Heavens, which is a pretty decent item, especially for Tiktaq'to, but generally speaking, the campaign movement range is very valuable, but the aura that it gives, plus 20 armor and plus 10 melee defense to all flying units nearby, is very strong. It will enable the sort of relatively weak in terms of melee defense and armor units of Riperdactyls to be a lot better once they touch down. That's one of our critical things to enable us to do that. Otherwise, we have begun defending the sort of Oyxl territories with Gor-Rok, who is now on the field. Admittedly, the AI didn't do a great job with his points. It certainly didn't get any of his unique line stuff, but at the same time, we don't yet have Saurus in his army other than the Legion of Tlaqua, so it's going to be okay that it's not so horrible, I guess. May as well move towards stand your ground first, since it's only 3 points to get there. But anyway, I digress. In terms of what we got to do this turn, now Tiktaq'to can still move, and at the end of the day, we should probably just go ahead and unlock Mr. Kroak. I feel like it's probably going to be a rather tough fight. I feel like I remember it. This is the one where there's like waves upon waves of rats coming in, and every wave gets harder than the last. Isn't that it? Because if that's it, this is going to be a toughie because, well, ammunition and all that. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. May as well take advantage of the fact that we have the casualty replenishment rate at such a high level if we take severe damage here. So, Lord Kroak it is. After a considerable amount of searching high and low right across Lustria, Lord Kroak's skink scouts finally locate the overgrown temple tomb in which the ancient relic priest is meditating, as ever, upon the fine details of the great plan. However, in their haste, it would appear that the scouts were somewhat careless, as they have been followed to Kroak's location by a force of those insidious ratmen, the Skaven. Do you know any other ratmen? Non-insidious ones? They plan to destroy him once and for all by incinerating his physical remains that anchor him to the world. This must not come to pass. Defend the Kroak from harm whilst his priests awaken him. Teleport. Alright, here we go. Pyrrhic victory, casualties medium, but yeah, if these guys get stronger and stronger with every individual army, it's definitely gonna be iffy. Away we go. There are few potential proponents of the Lizardmen's cause more powerful than the venerable Lord Kroak, deliverer of Oyxl. Said to have been taught the ways of the winds of magic by the old one known as Tepok, the stoking of Kroak's relics into an active state will likely be good for us.
Lord Kroak will be an invaluable ally in the fulfillment of the great plan, but his worldly relics are in imminent danger. The Skaven approach, Master of Skies. Prepare yourself. While Kroak's force field provides him with some protection, the awakening process leaves him vulnerable to attack. It is imperative that you defend him until he is fully risen from his slumber.
Alrighty, here we go. I do remember this quest battle. It's one of the very rare quest battles that I do remember, probably because, well, usually the problem is, you know, there's generally a pretty long time between campaigns of the same lord and thus doing of the same quest battles, long enough, especially if it's years for me to forget what the quest battles are about. But the Lord Kroak one is obviously present in all Lizardmen campaigns, and therefore one that can actually be remembered. Now, we do have a bunch of waves of rats that will come in towards attacking us, with the final wave coinciding with the awakening of Lord Kroak and like 8 units of Temple Guard that we could, in theory, potentially use here. We'll see if we need them, and depends on how this generally goes. Now, we are going to draw the enemy forward this time, and not meet them in the middle, as it were, but allow them to get a little bit closer than I otherwise might. The reason being that reinforcements coming in will eventually include Warplog Jezzails and I was going to say Screaming Skull Catapults and Warp Lightnings. Warp Lightning Cannons, and those are going to be extremely dangerous to our flyers, so none of that. Anyway, we're going to move towards the first enemy force, the weakest of the forces and thus the least concerning, and probably the force where we're least likely to need to waste our bombs upon. Let those clan rats fall to fire leech bolas, let the single entities fall to, well, primarily the enemy lord, fall to the regular pterodon riders. And the poor enemy range units, whether it be the shuriken or the regular slingers, and just get obliterated by our melee flyers. There we go. The Riperdactyls close the distance, and even with their low melee defense, the slingers and the night runners shouldn't be a particular threat to them. Gotta love all the sort of face armor on the Riperdactyls. Oh, interestingly enough, the ancient Riperdactyl, by virtue of being a single riderless unit, I guess it doesn't have that face armor. I could have given him some face armor, come on. He's gonna get jealous of these guys. Alrighty, well, the poor rats of the first army are getting just absolutely destroyed here. The Lord has been pincushioned and is booking it on out of there, and most of the first army has shattered. The second army now arrives on the field, this one being a little bit more molder-tastic. Still a bunch of clan rats and all, but with a Hellpit Abomination and some rat ogres on the field as well. Just going to speed this up a little bit as they move towards us, and we move to intercept them. There we go. Enemy Lord has fallen, and we're going to get the fire leech bolas floating over the units of... Oh, there are some storm vermin in here. Clan rats and stuff, but it looks like we're going to get hit with a howling warp gale. Huh, I thought the enemy lord here would be a... Oh, it's a Grey Seer of Ruin. Alright, fair enough. Alright, well... Just going to have to deal with the howling warp gale then. And not a big deal. At least I hope not. That does mean that is a pretty critical target in the form of the enemy Grey Seer now, certainly more so than the enemy Warlord. It does also mean that we then probably want to ignore the enemy Rat Ogres and thus have all of our Javelineers target this guy so he can't be doing those Howling Warp Gales anymore. And of course, while the enemy is approaching Lord Kroak's position, they have to cross the entire map, which means being under fire from our Fire Leech Bolas, so I don't really expect too many of the enemy units of Clan Rats or Storm Vermin to survive. The Grey Seer is down to about half of his HP, slowed down as well to 25 speed by the combination of poison and lethal poison, and the miscast probably not doing him any favors either. Down to 10% of his HP and a couple more hits, and the Screaming Bell will scream its last. That would have been really nice if it was on cue. Come on, man. Stop swinging and die. There you go. Alrighty. How are we doing otherwise? Looks like, say, a unit of Plague Monks was isolated, and, I mean, they're unbreakable, so we just sent all of the Riperdactyls at once to just tear them to shreds. That does mean, however, or the focus on the Plague Monk, no, not the Plague Monk, the Screaming Bell, did mean that unfortunately we had to deal with the Rat Ogres and the Hellpit Abominations afterwards, and they have nearly moved towards our Skink Chief, our only ground unit that enables us to use an air force like this. It is, I suppose, the weakness of this army. Alright, but it looks like they have started to back off. The Storm Vermin remain, but the Clan Rats are mostly destroyed, and now we switch to targeting that Hellpit Abomination, which can attack nothing at this point. This is actually, by virtue of the fact that the enemy is having a very difficult time engaging our aerial units, this is actually working fairly well. I was expecting this quest battle to be a lot more dangerous for Tiktaq'to's army, but our ammunition seems to be pretty okay now. Now that we have the level 12 bonus for Tiktaq'to and the ammunition on our Pterodon Riders is not likely to quickly run out, it's a pretty darn big difference. It also means we can actually lower the numbers of regular Pterodons that we have and replace them with other flyers. And there we go, so we don't have to rely on, well, We'll see how many of each. Anyway, the rat ogres get obliterated by the ripperdactyls. The helpet abomination gets pincushioned by the javelin chucking pterodons. And it looks like the, I want to say, final army has arrived on field, and yes, this is the most threatening one. We have a Warlock Engineer again with Howling Warp Gale on a Doom Wheel, mind you. Another Doom Wheel, a couple of Doom Flayers, and then 1, 2, 3 Warlock Jezzails, Warplock Jezzails, a couple of Rattling Guns, and a Warp Lightning Cannon as well. This is the army that I was extremely worried about with our Flyers. Fortunately, being the third army means that Lord Kroak's Guardians, as Temple Guard, have arrived on field. It also means that the Warp Lightning Cannons will be targeted by our summoned Ripperdactyls, which we've been saving over the course of the battle, specifically to destroy the enemy artillery like this, in the same way that the enemy would use its menace below on our artillery if we had any. I mean, admittedly, Dino artillery not so susceptible to that sort of tactic as other factions are. Anyway, Tic-Tac will go directly to the Warlock Engineer since he's not afraid of a Howling Warp Gale, as the AI generally won't use it on a single unit. Now, we've peeled away 2 units of Ripperdactyls and 2 units of Fire Leech Bolas all the way on the right flank. Why these guys? These are all blessed by Quan Chi, and thus they have the stock available to them, and the enemy can't fire upon them with their Jezzails as they approach. On the other side, however, we do have the regular Pterodon Riders, which are going to move on in, and they're going to start trying to pincushion those units of Jezzails and Rattling Guns quick as they can, and javelin them up as well, of course. And there we go, there's that Howling Warp Gale. Looks like hitting Tic-Tac-Go and Rocks Fall. 1 unit of Fire Leech Bolas and 1 Ripperdactyl, but it did allow other units to close. Oh. Is that a second Howling Warp Gale, or is it just a big area? I don't know, but more units are getting hit by it, unfortunately, since we were able to attack the enemy from 3 sides at once. The enemy's range units did not know where to fire, and thus could not take advantage of the devastating volleys that their Rattling Guns and Warplock Jezzails are very much capable of. Thus, this third army has no chance, and it looks like we don't even need to wait for the Temple Guard and Lord Kroak himself, there he is, to move in and make a move. Alright, well, that works for me. Very, very nice. Nice to see some Temple Guard. Will be probably a little bit until we get some of our own, though. I do wonder if we can get Temple Guard randomly in one of our expedition armies. Might be pretty neat. I wonder if these sort of unit rewards that the expeditions get will be sort of, better rewards as we go for the, the sort of the higher level expeditions for the higher level units. I wonder if we'll get more elite troops. Does anybody know, anybody remember, those who have played this mod or just other Caravan factions recently, have they changed it so that, if your Caravan stack is full, so that you can still pick up new units, as in, pick some units to delete? Or is it still that you can't? Because if you can't, we'll have to preemptively delete some units and some of the Caravan units just to keep a few slots open in case, we get better units and all that. We are still going to have to keep those Caravans going after all, and I'd really like to pick up a few nice elites. Anyway, not important as this battle is done. Lord Kroak is awake, and the last enemy lord, the Warlock Master on that Doom Wheel, is pressed by both Coatl and by Tiktaq'to. And it looks like with that, the Warlock Engineer will trundle on out of there, but not fast enough to escape the Feathered Serpent. There we go. The battle is ours, and a close victory, apparently, but probably more so due to the ammunition expenditure than anything else. I also want to point out that we don't really have a mage either. I mean, yes, we have a mage in the army, but, no actual casting. Alright, I gotta say that went pretty darn well. Certainly a lot better than I was expecting, considering the sheer amount of enemies, but once again, the Air Force does have an advantage, even against the Skaven, who, can fight back with those Jezzails and those Rattling Guns pretty darn well. Frankly, the Gutter Runners with Shuriken might actually be more threatening some situations, because you can at least hover over the Warplug Jezzails and the Rattling Guns and then just effectively just disable them by doing so. But you can't really do that with the Night Runners, or Gutter Runners rather. And they just chuck those shurikens straight up, and yeah. But anyway, very, very nice. Damage-wise, let's see what we got here. At 18k, Crazy Speed out to the other ancient Riprodactyl, and the Cloud of Teeth lived up to their name by ripping many a rat apart, and more than the other Riprodactyls. For the Fire Leech Bolas with 552,000 damage, it's one of the unnamed units, though admittedly the Rock's Fall was very close to it anyway. And some of the other Fire Leech Bolas also did, unsurprisingly, extremely well. We're going to take the money, and I assume that will unlock Lord Kroak right on top of Tiktaq'to. Yes, indeed it will. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is what it is. And is this a set? No, it isn't. Does this give us any faction-wide buffs out of curiosity? Doesn't appear to, by the looks of it. A bit unfortunate that. You know, here's what we'll do. We will keep you with Tic-Tac for now. Ooh, Amixon Barb. And ooh, Titchy Witchy's Raiders. Ooh, I know who you're going with. There we go. Unlock your Lord Kroak, and frankly, we needed the money. We're going to take the Skink Priest of Heavens, who is rank 9 now, out of our army. We're going to give him Specialist. We're going to give him Steel Tech. And is there anything here that will further your capabilities on field? Let me just see here. I guess we'll want to grab the Minor Blessing of Tlaqua because the wound recovery time, it's at least something. Ambush defense chance, campaign line of sight, which is fine, but let me just see here. Anything else that will enable us to succeed more, essentially, is what I'm looking for. Spell resistance, it does not look like it. Yeah, no dice. Alright, so that means we're free to get Block Army, Wound, and I suppose Cleanse Corruption as well. Let's go for, I'm going to say Block Army. Yeah, Block Army. Alrighty, there we go. Now, you should be able to Steel Tech with much success, 94%. I like it a lot. That actually, that worked out well. Like so. And what are we up to? 253. Nothing crazy as yet, but pretty solid at turn 31. You can, I guess, train the army. And then we'll use Lord Kroak in the army as well, after we heal to full, to heal up a little bit, and then swap in another, another mage, and then, use him as a tech thief afterwards. At least this way we leveled them up pretty quick just by being in Tic-Tac's army, and then we don't have to worry about them getting, torn to shreds in other places. Next up, we have Veritas here. We do still have to deal with. This is going to be costly, isn't it? We could get Diga, the 4th gen Slan priest, up and running, which would immediately enable us, I believe, to get Awakening of the Woods at least in this place. And we can obviously, reset him later until we get him a actual army. And the other option would be to get somebody like the... like the Saurus Oldblood, which isn't too bad of an idea either, generally speaking. We probably want more levels on the Slan, don't we? Alright, I hope I don't regret this. Oh, my lord, you're expensive. Alright, never gonna get cheaper, I guess. And there we go, almost negative. Well, we're about to go a lot more negative. Nwaddle, 8.8k, and I guess we'll grab the Piriaras and the Archaeopteryx here. This obviously won't be enough without them. There goes all our cash, and we're at minus 1.1k. But with that, hopefully you'll be able to defend. You can also, okay, you have items, and you've had them for a while, but you don't need items, because, I mean, what possible reason could you use them? Could you use them for, rather? Prize Hunter, Rat Spawn Sacrifice, neither one of them helps you. Alright, fair enough. Let's give you some items. Actually, I think we got some other items as well recently. What do we have here? We have the Blood Statuette of Spite, which is a little bit of extra damage. We'll pop that in. Get the little bit of extra armor out of the Maiming Shield, I guess. Don't really care about the Gold Sigil Sword, but the extra speed may be, maybe of some value. I don't really care for the Potions of Speed, I will admit, so maybe we'll fuse those into a Cloak of Feathers. Why More barrier, not so bad. Earthing Rod and Diadem of Power. Winds of Magic Power Reserve and Chance of Winds of Magic increasing. I'm gonna say fuse these into a Channeling Staff. Alright, fair enough. Better than nothing at any rate. And then we have no talismans whatsoever other than the Aura of Quetzal, and we're not gonna bother giving that, or at least taking it from Mr. Tic-Tac. Alright, well that's all we've got, and we've committed a lot of resources to this now, so hopefully we don't lose the place. But if we do, we do. Not much we could do about it. Huh, I wonder. Ezozyme, out of curiosity, if you move down here into our allied territory, you still heal, not nearly as much, though. I'm wondering if we can proceed to Dawn's Light and grab it. Wait, are we able to... A moment. Unit upgrades. In friendly territory, we are. We could encamp. If we move to the edge, we should be able to get right to Dawn's Light by next turn. There are defenders here, and we'll have to fight them, but maybe we can reach this quickly. I'm just wondering, what if these guys besiege the place and just sit there for a while? In that case, we will need to move in and reinforce them. Oh, that public order. Well, what can you do? We will want to switch you guys into the skink cohorts with javelins, as that's at least one of the things that this army is going to be based around. These two are skink skirmishers, which can only be upgraded to, well, less skink skirmishers, but pterodon riders, which is certainly going to be useful here. You, no upgrade as yet, unfortunately. Alright, well, I believe that's it for you. I guess what we could also do is get at least a little bit of Malais. So the Amexon Barb is nice, but it's not going to help us on the walls, and the cohort of Sotek will. So we'll do that. And I'm tempted by Titchy Witchies, but with 2.4k per turn is a lot. I guess the question will be whether we'll be able to fix our income in, you know, in decent time. And I'm just going to have to hope that we will. Actually, this is 7 units, so you have, well, actually 6 units because we wouldn't need the Piriaras. And, well, some of this stuff admittedly is going to get swapped around between 2 armies. In theory, both of you are holding units from 2 armies rather than 1. I really wish I could see what else was in this army, because if it's a bunch of Chaos Spawn, it's going to be a problem. Very tempted by Titchy Witchies. They're stupidly expensive, though. But you know what? Maybe we should just get them. In for a penny and in for a pound and all that. And do it. Now there's no way that they take it. Now, at least we don't have to send a Tic-Tac back there, and while that was a lot of income, we can eventually go out from here and quickly grab the Skull Island and these 3 islands to make up some of the losses, you know? Alrighty. Otherwise, I believe we are good, yes, other than Tic-Tac sitting there. Well, there is one other thing that I was considering, and that is to get the Blessed by Kashwatan here. Washti is going to go to the Blood Swamps and allow Gor-Rok to maintain his movement range. In fact, maybe we should go to... Oh, it's a likelihood that you attack this. We'll be fine. Maybe go into the enemy territory then. You can't raid, but you can save movement range by being there. Alright, and then the other possible thing that we could do... Wait. What was the other possible thing that we could do? Huh. Well, I guess it depends on whether these guys have Siege Attacker or not. If they do, then we could pop off another... I mean, we have a lot of extra alignments. I'll just leave it, at least for now. Skip outpost, and military convoy should be done. Let's end the turn. Moment of truth, let's see what happens. Let's see if they attack in the first place. I suppose if they don't, it won't matter much, because we'll send our other armies out that way. And we just have to, you know, fix our money situation so that we can actually afford the armies that we currently have on field. Alright, and they will attack Tic-Tac. You are insane. Yeah, the AI is incapable of recognizing the fact that they have no anti-air whatsoever. I think I'm just going to auto-resolve this. You know what, I'm going to quick save this, and it's a Pyrrhic victory, but we have maximum amount of healing, so it should be okay. I'm going to auto-resolve this, but I want to quick save in case the auto-resolve is lying, because sometimes it does, and sometimes it'll kill off a unit. We know we'd obliterate these guys. I think there's no question about it. And I don't want to waste the time. So, Ritual Purification. That's 1 turn worth of cash back. And then you'll heal up to half, and... what is this? Looks like an attack on Oyxl. Interesting. All right. The warp grinders are actually quite an issue here. Interesting. I think this should be an interesting enough battle to be worthy of fighting. In fact, I think this is more in the enemy's favor than the game is letting on, just by virtue of the fact that those warp grinders can penetrate all the walls and bring down the towers as well. Certainly dangerous. Luckily, we don't have a warlock. Actually, they do have a warlock engineer. Darn, I was hoping to avoid the warp lighting. But what can you do? Go, go, go. Alrighty, here we go. This should be an interesting one, I'd wager. The enemy outnumbers us by a pretty large amount, having a stack and then another little over a third of a stack, whereas we have half a stack ourselves. The biggest problem, as I was saying, was the fact that we don't have a lot of infantry troops, as in troops that we can dock up on the walls to have the towers active. On top of that, the limited amounts that we have to be up on the walls and thus can't be defending gates and all that. And just gotta make do with what we've got. The enemy is also smart enough to actually attack us from 4 different directions, including the reinforcements, and that means that they will certainly be able to make good use of their warp grinders to penetrate walls and gates quickly wheresoever they need to. Now, our units of the Cold One Riders will sally out of the gate, trying to tie up as many of the clan rats as possible and allow the chameleon skinks and the fort towers to fire upon them as much as possible. We have our Ripperdactyls also summoned, and they're going to go after the enemy warp grinders, who will never use their earthquake or warpquake ability or their seismic snare against a single unit, which allows a unit like a Ripperdactyl to by itself to tear them to shreds. The units of Cold One Riders are doing a great job over on this side and just tying the enemy units up, though it does look like the first of the enemies are starting to climb the wall. Over on this side, we do have the same thing repeating itself. The units of Kroak have this time sallied out and have absolutely smashed that poor unit of warp grinders, and not in a good way, and will soon turn to whatever other units they can. That said, an assassin has quickly climbed the walls, and wait, I thought they removed butt ladders. Have they not removed them yet? Okay, apparently not. Well, whatever, I'm still not going to use them myself. All good. And I'm perfectly happy with the assassins to still be able to climb up, because they definitely should. And then, speaking of, the first assassin has joined us up on the walls and is going after our skink cohorts. Fortunately, the assassins have relatively low melee defense, and the skink cohorts, even without relying on their javelins to do damage, can probably still hurt the assassin a decent little bit. Otherwise, the biggest portion of the enemy army has arrived over on this side of the map, and there's really nothing that we can do to stop them. We're having to keep the Saurus, unfortunately, as I was saying, right here near the towers, just so that it keeps the tower active and firing, rather than potentially defending the gate, which we otherwise could maybe do. Oh well. And then, of course, the reinforcements have arrived as well. Similarly, we have a Saurus here and a Saurus Scarvet, and they're just going to have to do their best. It looks like a gate has been destroyed somewhere. But we are very much winning the battle over on this side of the map. Chieftain has made it in and has captured the gate, but we don't really need the Cold One Riders there. It looks like the enemy units are moving up on top of the walls with a couple of their units, but the Ripperdactyls should be able to tear through them. This is actually a fairly good use of the Ripperdactyls while a unit climbs like this, and because they can't really hit the Ripperdactyls back in decent numbers, and the Ripperdactyls can tear through them rather quickly. So it's essentially the rats are just one by one walking into this Ripperdactyl blender, and basically not a single unit will make it out of this alive, as long as it's only the one unit. Which actually does, well, pretty good idea to use these guys like this on the defensive. At least as long as the enemy doesn't have range units to punish them, because again, they are super fragile. Anyway, they've already torn through half of this unit of clan rats, and not a single one has really made it up. Beautiful. Alright, how are we doing over on the other sides? The enemy has absolutely breached our settlement on this side, though it does look like a couple of them have engaged the Saurus on the walls, and the Saurus should at least heavily damage, if not outright destroy, the 2 units of gutter runners or night runners. Looks like gutter runners. that are making their way up here. Would be nice if the shadow of, I don't know, the tower, or whatever this shadow is, wasn't just directly over the units fighting. But what can you do? I'm just gonna have to keep on fighting. Alright, how are we doing on this side? An enemy Warlock Engineer? No, Grey Seer of Plague. Ooh, very close. Attempted to make its way up towards this minor supply location to break this shooting tower, but routed just as he made it up there. Fortunately, the javelins and the tower itself did just enough damage to the guy by focusing him. And it looks like he'll be out of the picture pretty soon, which is a nice unit. Less fortunately, perhaps, is that the enemy was able to briefly capture the gate, and thus the Kroaks were stuck out there. Or they also took a little bit of damage. There's an annoying sort of habit with the AI being favored in terms of the wall capture. So remember when that assassin moved up here? Despite the fact that our skink cohort was up on this territory, the fact that one assassin was there meant that the towers switched hands to the enemy's side, or the towers, which to me makes no sense whatsoever. Why would one little fella capture it when we still have the entire tower? If anything, if you want to play it like that, the tower should then change to neutral instead of fully in the enemy's hands. Anyway, what that meant was that this particular unit of Kroaks, which was stuck out there, lost most of their HP due to the towers firing upon them, despite the fact that our unit was docked there. But walls, admittedly, have always been buggy in this game. Docking, in particular, is extremely buggy. Range units firing on top of walls are pretty buggy, so, you know, can't expect towers to not be buggy at this point. Not that it's a major issue or anything like that. I mean, some would say it is, but we don't get all that many sieges happening. We mostly do field battles, so, you know, if 1 out of every, like, 30 battles is a siege and the issues don't pop up every time, it's actually not as often encountered as you might think. Especially if you play specifically to avoid sieges like I do, but anyway. Not that I don't enjoy sieges, it's just that a lot of that sieges have a tendency to be broken in terms of their replay capability, the desyncs and all that. Anyway, how are we doing? The balance power remains in the enemy's favor, but the enemy has completely lost over on the left side of the map, and by the looks of it, are in the process of losing on the right side of the map as well. The biggest portion of the enemy has broken through over here, but, well, there's not much we can do about it. What we can do, however, is retreat the Bastille with Reviv Crystal. We definitely can't be losing this thing, as it'll be critical to our defense going further. And we'll consolidate our troops from the other locations where we've won in order to make use of the Reviv Crystal to keep them up and running. Another charge from the Cold One Riders right into those rats, which were already, I believe, running away. They're wavering and their lord is dead as well, and now they have Cold Ones eating their faces. It's even worse than leopards eating faces. There we go. Alrighty, and the Night Runners are out of the picture. Plenty more enemies where that came from, though it does look like 3 or 4 or 5 of them are still distracted by this unit of Source, which is bravely holding this wall, completely unsupported by itself. Down to about 45% of their HP, but have racked up 12,000, nearly 13,000 damage. They are, however, going to start taking a lot of hurt now, as a unit of Storm Vermin with halberds, and thus armor-piercing damage, have arrived to fight the Saurus. And Saurus are a very solid unit, usable throughout the game, from early game to very late game, especially with buffs and especially in SFO. But this is a garrison unit, and they're not going to have a great time fighting the armor-piercing Storm Vermin here. Especially with other units distracting them, and clan rats acting as shields and all that. Meat shields, of course. I mean, you know, it's Skaven, that goes without saying. Alrighty, the other Saurus over on this side. Luckily, we did have 4 Saurus on the map, so since the enemy attacked us with from 4 different directions, we were able to deploy 1 unit of Saurus to each particular location. And the clan rats, unlike the Storm Vermin, will not have an easy time at all doing anything to those Saurus, especially with the javelin chucking, well, javelin cohort or skink cohort. providing a little bit of support. And the Kroak are waiting a little bit while the enemy takes a little bit of hurt and maybe a little bit of damage from that tower. But then they'll wade into combat as well and apply that fear to the enemy. Our Basti briefly moves into combat as well. Clan rats are not going to be particularly threatening to this thing as they have low armor piercing, and even with their anti-large are not going to be doing a crazy amount of damage to it. The reason here, the idea here isn't really to do damage to these guys so much as prevent them from moving up here right now, as we don't have other units and this area controls this tower. We need other units to consolidate, and all of the units from this side essentially to move over here to help against the vast majority of enemies. Okay, it was too late to watch it, but to try to keep the enemy back from moving through this gate, our Saurus Scarvet somewhere here made a last stand and just fought them to the death. Good for him. And it looks like the Warlock Master has been caught and torn to shreds by the Ripperdactyls as well. Very nice. It's kind of hard to keep those cinematic shots going in this particular battle because, you know, the battle is very, very distributed all over the battlefield. But you gotta admit it's a pretty solid siege with lots of stuff happening. And we do have to be careful with considering how horrifically outnumbered we are here. Though not so outnumbered over on the rear right flank as well, or rear right portion of this particular settlement, which has now won its battle in the same way that the rear left has. Front left is still in the fight, but not for much longer, as only 2 units of clan rats remain, and one of them severely damaged. We do still have to deal with the storm vermin and 4 more units of clan rats here. But now we should be pretty okay. Still moving other units in to consolidate. And let's speed it up as we do, as this is where the battle will be decided. But it looks like they're not going to be able to take this tower. There's another charge from the Cold One Riders. And now they are near to the Reviv crystals, so we should be able to provide them heals. And thus they can stick around and in combat against the Clan Rat Spears without being worried about losing models. Or at the very least, not too many. The Kroxagors, the Saurus, and the Skinks have also arrived. And the enemy are not capturing this key location, and I think the enemy have realized that, as with that, the last of the rats will shatter, and the battle is ours. Very, very nice. Managed to pull it off. Kind of surprising that this floating pyramid up here doesn't have some kind of, I don't know, beam of Chotek cannons up here, just firing at the enemy below. Would be pretty cool. Actually, it would be neat if you could, you know, give control to the player with that. Just operate yourself one of those beams of Chotek from this angle, of course, and try to fire down on the enemy like this. But anyway, I digress. Ooh, alrighty, there we go. Certainly had to work for it just by virtue of the distributed nature of the battle alone, but at the end of the day, a heroic victory. And a heroic last stand for sort of Scarvet that held the gate for a little while against pretty much, I don't know, a quarter of the enemy army by himself. Possibly, yeah, something like that. But anyway, a lovely work from everybody else, especially the Cold One Riders, which came in very handy. The Saurus, of course, held ground well, and the Skinks all racked up about similar damage as well. Take the money. Always take the money nowadays. Alright, an ally mission successful, as well as a free fan waiver. Hopefully we can pop that somewhere useful. Alright, now... And hello, alright, there's the expedition is completed. We got another Piriaras, our second one. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 Cherupins, which is great, and 2 Juradon. Both Cherupins and Juradon are able to be upgraded into a higher... Are you kidding me? Oh, because... Huh? What are you talking? Immune to attrition? How are you suffering attrition? Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Mutagenic. Oh, you piece of garbage game. That is so irritating. Well, we can't take this as damaged as we are now. For the love of... Alright, go back to you attack and then heal up there next turn. Wow. Yeah, what... Do these Zinchans even have access to mutagenic energies, or is that like a village thing? I don't know. I do know that was annoying, but what can you do? Settlement besieged, Fate Weaver's Crevasse, the Abyssal Glacier. Yes, we can see that. Sort of Kane claimed somewhere, and... Power Sentinel's up and running. An unusual location in the Deadhead Monoliths. What do we have here? I mean, is it another Chaos one? Yeah, no, Elven Forts, growth, tradable resources produced, and diplomatic relations with High Elves, which is fine since we're looking to be reasonably friendly with them anyway. How's that peace looking? Well, Clan Spittle is nearly there. We got to reduce the number of foes we're facing at once, so we're gonna have to work on that. But it looks like no peace there as yet. They're probably gonna begin raiding Oyxl as well, but again, what can you do? Oh, that mutagenic energies. Oh, I am salty about that. But what can you do? Anyway, we'll have Gor-Rok reinforce here at the Blood Swamps. We will put you into regular stance as well. And then I will have Washti take this. Oh, you're not actually in range of it. Oh, well, there goes that plan. Huh. Maybe it's because Gor-Rok is... and it isn't. Oh, game. Okay, well, that's my fault, I guess. Go to the Blood Swamps. I guess we could sack it, but I'm not sure that we want to deal with the negative public order, so I guess we'll just reinforce and leech the XP for the turn. Auto-resolve. Yeah, no significant damage, occupy, and then immediately switch to alignment of monuments for the research rate, if nothing else. And then immediately I guess we'll have to upgrade this because it's better not to waste the turn, even with the construction cost reduction. Yeah. Alrighty, looks good to me, and then Washti you can channel, I guess. We'll have you leeching XP from Gor-Rok. You have a decent trait with the 10%, right? Missile resistance and weapon strength. It's nothing crazy, but it's certainly worth using with some stuff. Huh. You know, maybe the Cherupins, these guys, the turtles, would be appropriate with Gor-Rok. He's kind of a super defensive lord. Yeah, you know what? I think that'll fit his theme nicely. Yeah, as soon as we have a little bit of cash to spare, we'll pop them in his army with Saurus, of course, and eventually the Cherupins will have gunners as well, when they get upgraded. I like it. Alright. Oyxl, you're... well, you're going to be a lot more defensive once that Shrine of Birds is completed. I'm a little bit worried about these guys bypassing all of this and going to Quetzal or Shodel. So, well, let's get the defenses up and running if nothing else. It'll mean a less income per turn, but there isn't anything we can do about that right now. Anyway, Tic-Tac is you. Is always you. You. Also, you. Dikukan. Let's have you Steel Tech. It's expensive, but it's worth it. Hey, reached rank 10, which gives us an additional Steel Tech capabilities. And then you... Steal from the Demon's Gate. And another success. Good job, little fella. Specialist for you as well. Ooh, let's also check... okay, let's check here. What do we have in terms of Skink Priest available? Another Blessed by Sotek. We're at 3 out of 5, so we could do another Tech Thief. It's just that, once again, we'd need one in the army here, and... yeah. Alright, well, Lord Kroak, do we want to save points with you? Do you have something that gives us bonuses faction-wide? So at level 10 we have this, Winds of Magic. Basically buffs to all Slan faction. And admittedly, we do have several Slan up and running. And Grand Palanquin is actually really nice as well. Basically maxing out the move range of a Tic-Tac. Meaning we'll want to save his points after about rank 10. Yeah, probably. Well, we'll get Deliverance of Itza up to level 3, and then we'll probably save the points afterwards. Oh, wow. Arcane Convergence. Well, it wouldn't stay in this army, so maybe Arcane Convergence isn't as good as I thought it was. Anyway, and wait, what does Eldest... okay, no, that's 10%. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, you. Guerrilla Fighter. Definitely need that natural camouflage ASAP, but for now, you can have... I'm gonna say Agility of the Lizard. You're gonna need to be able to get away, because you're currently our ground guy. You, other Skink Chief, you're more of a fighty guy right now. Let's get that Diplo with other Lizardmen. Always a nice thing to have. I think here that's critical. Nothing critical, I would say. And nothing critical here as well. Well, I mean, the 8 melee defense is actually fairly nice for you. You know what, I'm gonna say marked for service, just the 8 melee defense for you yourself. I really wish at least the physical resistance would include Skink Rider units, not just their infantry, but, you know, what can you do? Anyway, go after this little army and destroy it. And then all the way to Castle of Splendor. Not a resolve. This better not damage our army. Don't hurt the coatl. Don't you do it, game. Okay, we're good. the panic. You can reach Castle of Splendor. Beautiful. And that's more XP for Lord Kroak. And what do we have here? Looks auto-resolvable to me. Probably gonna hurt the coatl, but whatever. Occupy. Oh, lovely. And Itchy Grubs. A cooldown minus 20% for spells. That'll be nice for one of the other Slan. Whichever one is more sort of spammy in terms of their spells. Definitely the Cold One Monument. Old One Monument. Oh, I wouldn't... it's not like I wouldn't enjoy a Cold One Monument either. Alright, there we go. And... Alright, so you're stuck because of that bloody mutagenic energies. I feel the salt rising again. Anyway, and then Quetgar, you are going to go right here to the Statues of the Gods, wherein you will build stuff up at tier 4 next turn. Some important stuff, I might add. Alrighty. Gor-Rok, you're stuck where you are. We can... I mean, we could get you Unrelenting Assault. We could get you... I mean, Blessing of Quetzal, obviously, for you. Oh! Barrier hit points. That's nice. That is nice indeed. I'm surprised that the legendary lords don't have access to every single blessing, like in certain factions. Still don't have any Saurus to take advantage of. Maybe we'll send the Saurus lord we recruited back and have him recruit some Saurus for this guy. Although, as soon as we get some spawning sequence, we'll just spawn some of the blessed Saurus. I feel the legendary lords should have more blessed units than other lords, you know? Although if we use... Yeah, there's not a lot of space in this army, admittedly. With the current sort of skinkified and creatureified thing that we got going on. Yeah. At least the Cherupins aren't that expensive. But I digress. Anyway, let's just get Unrelenting Assault, and then we'll go for Protector of Lustria at least, and then maybe the Great White Lizard. So at the very least, if something happens to this army, it's not going to die just because Gor-Rok is so strong. And I don't know where the enemy lord is. I'm very concerned that he's been sailing across the ocean towards the Deadhead Monoliths the entire time. I'll be very, very... well, I'll be more salty if that happens. Anyway, Diga. What do we have here? Veritas, Pyrrhic Victory. They've got primarily blue horrors of Tzeentch, which are certainly an issue. I don't know how effective the Nahuatls are, but I guess we'll give it a shot. And just send the enemies scurrying. And hope that we succeed. Yeah. Alrighty, here we go. Diga, our second Slan. I mean, technically, I guess our first Slan is on the field, but also so are two of our new units. First, the Pirayaras, which we were waiting for, which I couldn't quite understand how to get on field. And they're so cute. Yeah, so these guys are going to be like the Felbat equivalent, very low melee attack, but high melee defense and low armor, in which we can potentially use to either chase troops or tie down artillery pieces or range units. Should be effective against things like blue horrors in theory as well. We also have the Nahuatl, which are our new units, which are like aquatic salamanders, I guess. There we go, and they function pretty darn similarly with similar sort of range, applying range, sort of watery blasts at the enemy. And why I was going to make them part of or central to a aquatic-themed army. Alright, well, they're going to start on this unit, applying a Tide Call to the enemy as they run with that 20% speed reduction, which is pretty solid, and thus a good option for combining that with the with other slowdown units. Bolt of the Old Ones comes in from our Old One as well, and by the looks of it, a pretty solid hit. Following up, of course, with an Awakening of the Wood. Now, otherwise, if you're wondering about the strategy of how we're going to attempt to do this particular army, because we actually have to work for this victory. So, the enemy has a lot of blue horrors, which are going to be threatening to us, and we're going to defend against them by hiding the Basti behind this big old cliff, mountain, freaky volcano, I don't know what to call this thing, but that thing, and thus preventing the range fire from attacking it. Just keeping it near enough to the small Pilosaurus, which we keep in a blob, and allowing them to be healed while they hold off the Sangors, the Marauders, and the other infantry, and all that. The cohort of Sotek and the Pirayaras are waiting to engage in the back. We're also waiting to summon our Ripperdactyls to deal with the Chaos Furies, and the Nahuatl will provide salamander-like support from the sidelines as they do. Keep in mind that Nahuatl also have stock available to them, so the enemy didn't know where our units of these guys were deployed. Oh, and by the looks of it, one volley does about 15-20% damage from 2 units to a blue horror. Horror, YouTube. And not too bad. Alright, the Ripperdactyls have now been summoned and have distracted that unit of Furies, and we're going to... Well, I was going to originally move the Puriaras in to help, but it looks like a second unit of Furies has arrived and is annoying the Noatl, which we're going to thus move to reinforce. Over in the back line, or the left flank, the Archaeopteryx, together with the units of Tichiwich's Raiders, which will eventually go back to Tyrannicon's army, as that is where they belong. Oh, and you gotta admit the Tichiwich's Raiders look fantastic. You gotta love the golden matching helmets on the Skink Rider and the Horned one as well. Again, Lizardmen aesthetics, just magnificent. And Tomb King aesthetics as well, which we just did, so he has some definitely aesthetically favored factions over the last couple of campaigns. Anyway, the Tichiwich's Raiders are dishing out massive damage, but the Archaeopteryx, as I said, Warhound equivalent being, are extremely fragile and lose about 40%, actually more like 55% of their HP. It does look like one of the enemy infantry did manage to attack the Bastie after all. I'm going to back it off a little bit, but it also does look like we've managed to force a few of the enemy to blob up here. There we go. Awakening of the Woods and those watery blasts from the Noatl continue, and by the looks of it are doing pretty good, while we continue holding the line with our Saurus being healed, and by that Reviv Crystal. How well can we hold it with the Searing Doom coming down? I'm not so sure, but just gonna have to keep on trying. Alright, it does look like the enemy did manage to kill off a few of the Noatl here, I believe as part of... I actually don't remember whether that was part of a ranged fight or whether it was part of the Furies attempt, but all good. The cohort of Sotek move on in. Of course, the enemy are still being attacked by the Noatl, and that means we might take splash damage, and thus we use Refuse to Die on the cohort of Sotek, so we're not so worried about the splash damage out of the Tide Call, or the, well, attacks of the Noatl, or the Awakening of the Wood. And it looks like the demons are out as the banishment begins. Bounce power shifts to about 80% in our favor, and few enemy now remain. And interestingly enough, it looks like the Noatl actually do pretty solid damage to single entities. I had one of them target the Cultists of Tzeentch, and despite the fact that it's a single entity, these guys are pretty darn accurate. Go figure. Yeah, look at that. That's a pretty solid volley. And with that, they bring the single entity down. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if these guys are then perhaps a good use... they have bonus versus infantry. But by the looks of it, pretty solid at sniping single entities. If we combine them with salamanders, which are very good against bigger blobs of enemies, I wonder how that'll go. Anyway, the enemy has another parting gift for us, even though the Chaos Sorcerer and the Chaos Lord have both broken, and leaving us with one last Gehenna's Golden Hounds. That's the second use. The first one actually hit the cohort of Sotek, which, you know, took out a bunch of their number right here. And of course the enemy's been spamming Searing Doom this entire time, but it's only fair. We've been using Awakening of the Wood and all that. And it looks like the last of the enemy units, currently being overrun by the Archaeopteryx, the Summoned Ripperdactyls, and the Horned ones, or the Tichiwich's Raiders, are just about done. Banished and vanished in flame, and with that, the battle is completely ours. Very nice, a solid debut from the Noatl, which seemed to have done great damage both against enemy infantry, both the Marauders, which are sort of close, tight formations, and the loose formations of the demonic units, and the single entities as well. Looks like a pretty solid unit. Be excited to see what kind of shenanigans we can put them up to. I've got to put them in at least 2 armies that I can think of now, and there's probably a few other concepts as well, but anyway. Alrighty, there we go, and ooh, free Banner of Eternal Flame. Considering we've got some fire army, or possibly armies, on the way, I am certainly excited to have one of these. Very nice job to Mr. Diga here, as they were, well, The Nahuatl did very, very well. In fact, out damaging the Tichiwichi's raiders, though eventually they will be buffed up to a very significant degree. Our plan with having the Saurus behind that mountain and thus just getting heals from the super damaged Reviv Crystal worked out very well as well. The Piriaras helped out in chasing enemy troops, so certainly a decent option to put a couple of them into Tiktaq'to's army. So that other units aren't busy chasing stuff around, and just, you know, for multiple types of flyers. And the cohort of Sotek admittedly did took by far the most damage, going down to 40% or so, but at the same time, they did the most damage and got the most kills as well, with the sole exception of one of these units of Nahuatls. Very, very nice. And yeah, these guys just got wrecked by Gehenna's Golden Hands. So. Also, of course, Diga himself was 27,000 damage. Very solid for a level 1 Slan. You gotta admit. Anyway, healing is too minimal to bother with, so I think we will Ritual Purification as we do, and then chase down the remnants of that army. Then we'll link up with our other army, and then hopefully we'll be able to take down Demon's Gate without having the... without having to have Tic-Tac move over here. Diga, kill. Auto-resolve. This might help with the auto-resolve. Auto-resolve. Actually, no, put that on these guys. Auto-resolve. And... alright, no significant damage, and this time we'll take the slight amount of healing as well. Lovely. And we got a free Divining Rod. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Now, we could besiege Demon's Gate, but we can't take it with these guys, unfortunately, at least not without the other units, so I think we could go back into Fate Weaver's Crevasse just for the public order. Admittedly, it'll be able to defend itself soon with the Mystic Barriers, to some degree, although because of the anti-casual replenishment, casualty replenishment rate, it's going to have a difficult time. Frankly, it might mean that we may want to build up the meat storage halls in this territory for a while, though I was hoping to use it as a capacity place. I'll think about it. Anyway, you're going to go into Fate Weaver's Crevasse for now. We have to link up with the other army, which is damaged, so it is what it is. Anyway, with that, I think this is probably going to be a pretty good place to call it. We are just about at the end turn. In fact, we are indeed at the end turn, minus any buildings to be built. And there are none of those, really, other than the temple precinct here, which I guess we should just get started on. Not really a choice in the matter. It's going to take 1 billion years to actually build it up thanks to the red territory, so it is what it is. Yeah. Well, it'll fix itself eventually. Actually, I'd love to get rid of the Shrine of the Old Ones, but the anti-corruption is pretty valuable here. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to call the episode here. Next time, we will quickly move to wipe out Dawn's Light and then link these two armies up. Mr. Gor-Rok will continue menacing whatever enemies he can out here until we can peace out with at least one of them, ideally 2 of them, and then deal with the other. We'll send another military convoy at the start of the next round as well, and then send Washti back to get some Saurus from Shlanwapek to pop into Gor-Rok's army, possibly with some lieutenants as well. Yeah, we'll see what options we have here. Amulet of Oyxl isn't bad, but anyway, should be plenty more fun to have. We've tried out the Piriaras and the Nahuatl, and plenty more of these guys to try. So stay tuned for more. Don't forget to leave those likes and comments below. All glory to the algorithm, and thanks for watching.